Hello and welcome to the NBA Outlet presented by OTGBasketball.com. Make sure you follow OTG on Twitter at OTGBasketball. Also hit that subscribe button. I'm your host, Nick Fay. With me today, two familiar voices, Kory Waldron, Jac Manuell. How you guys doing?
I'm in an Arthur kind of mood, Nick. Frustrated, but looking forward to it.
I woke up in the morning, I pissed excellence, so I'm feeling really good.
Yes, great point. Great film.
Got to start the day on the right page. Yesterday, we had our first big trade of the season. Our first trade of the season. Eric Bledsoe to the Milwaukee Bucks for Greg Monroe, protected first-round pick, protected second-round pick. Initial thoughts on this trade?
The Bucks got him for a steal. The whole talk of Thon maybe being a part of a package, even Brogdon being part of a package. They didn't have to give up either of those guys, and they got rid of someone who right now is injured, so he's not even contributing for the team. But also had a big pay packet, though admittedly it is expiring. But Bucks had to sort of make a move. They seem to be all in on this, but it does put a lot of pressure on Coach Jason Kidd.
Yeah, I mean, it's a steal. You get an all-star caliber type of point guard in Bledsoe, who now is going to be in a winning environment. It takes some pressure off Antetokounmpo. They still have Jabari Parker coming back in February. And then, as you said, for Jason Kidd, though, it puts him – if he doesn't succeed with this roster, his time in Milwaukee will be short.
Yeah, definitely for Kidd because he already had some pressure going in. The Bucks have kind of gotten off to a slow start. What do you think Eric Bledsoe brings to this team? How is he going to help them? How is he going to help Giannis?
Look, it eases the load somewhat, Nick. It sort of gives them that second guy, even third guy, because you look at Chris Middleton, he's a quality player. And it gives them depth, gives them quality. The whole NBA is right now about getting elite talent surrounding, your superstar with a second superstar or a third superstar. Bledsoe may not be a superstar, but he's a star. He's, as Kory mentioned, he's one of the better point guards in the NBA right now. He'd be pushing the top 10, probably on the fringes of that. He fits in quite nicely because he's got some nice length, despite not being 6'7", as tall as some of their other guards. He is capable defensively. Admittedly, he did show that in Phoenix, but look at the support cast that he had over there. And it's just going to be interesting to see if he can defer to Giannis in a way that benefits not only him but the Bucks team.
Yeah, I agree. I don't really have any other thoughts besides that. I agree. I don't really have a different opinion on that.
Do you think Bledsoe playing off ball is going to hurt him, or he's just going to need some time to adjust and he's going to be able to, one thing I've heard that would be a nice combo is like a Bledsoe and Giannis pick and roll.
Oh yeah, that'll be deadly. It'll be the thing I think, Nick, is that what they're gonna have to do is sort of what we talk about with our Nets. Experiment a little bit with the lineups. Try some Giannis at the 5. I think it moves Brogdon to the bench. I'm not sure. Who do you guys think goes to the bench? Is it Brogdon or is it Snell?
I'm gonna probably go with Snell. Yeah, I think Snell as well. Even though Snell is probably a better player to play with starters with a skill set, and Brogdon could do more with the second unit, I think they'll keep Brogdon in the starting lineup, at least to start off.
Interesting. Whether obviously that pans out, just listening to some takes on Dunked On, Danny LaRue and Nate both thought the fit of Tony Snell just worked better just because obviously he doesn't need the ball as much. He's not a ball handler. And not to say that Malcolm Brogdon is a ball hog by any stretch. He defers quite nicely. But I think, Coach Kidd will have to experiment a little bit with that. The 3-and-D sort of element of Tony Snell I like. He's got a bit more experience, but Brogdon's had a great start to the season. I don't think you can really go wrong with either of them. But it's going to be interesting to see, going into the next game. Does Bledsoe start? How does he sort of fit in? Does he come off the bench? How many minutes does he play? It's going to be a work in progress, but at least it's happening at a time where they can, they've got, an extra 70 games or so to sort of figure it out.
I do think if they were to bring in, if Brogdon was to come off the bench, that when Jabari came back in February, the bench unit would probably be better if it had Brogdon and Jabari, instead of Tony Snell and Jabari off the bench. To your point of Bledsoe, I think Bledsoe probably plays between 25 and 30 minutes maybe the first night. I'm sure they're going to see how much in game shape he is. As we know, he hasn't been at the training facility for that often. I'm sure he's still working out and playing, but they'll have to just see if he's still in, game time shape.
Yeah, you guys mentioned Bledsoe's minutes, and his health is somewhat of a concern in this trade. If you didn't know, Eric Bledsoe only has about a half of a meniscus. He had his meniscus moved from his right knee, and he had surgery on the left one, so there isn't a ton there. So that was one of the reasons the Suns were having issues trading him. So do you think that could be a concern for the Bucks moving forward?
Well, I think it's worth taking into consideration, Nick. But in terms of what they gave up for him, I think it's sort of null and void. You look at, Jabari Parker's had his injury history. Do you want two of your top three guys to have a long-term injury history behind them? Giannis, touchwood, has been fine so far in his career, but it's certainly something they'll take into account. But at the same time, Bledsoe is only 28 years of age, so he does have someone on his side. He's by no means a Derrick Rose. He, in terms of the amount he's had to exert over the past couple of years with the Suns, especially on the defensive end, where I think he's going to be asked a lot more, especially in kids' system where they've been lacking quite a bit. There's certainly some concern, but I'm sure they weighed that up in terms of the deal, because the picks that they've given up, even the heavy protections behind them, sort of help them in that case.
I just love the fit for the fact that Bledsoe is just a ball handler. It's somebody who can go out there and get you a bucket besides Giannis. Because, we've seen, at least from this early stretch, that, Giannis has to pretty much do everything. He's got to drive and create for himself. He has to also create for others. He still doesn't have a solid jump shot, and he's getting a point guard in Bledsoe who can shoot the three, who can hit the jump shot, who's very strong and going to the rim. I like Bledsoe on this team a lot.
Well, you guys are mentioning what he brings, how much better he's making the Bucks. So where do they stand now in the Eastern Conference? How much does this boost them up?
I think that they have to push for a top four. If they miss out on a home home court advantage going into the playoffs, then Coach Kidd's going to come under real fire. They are with you. You always say if you have one of the best players in your conference, you should be one of the top teams. Do they supersede Toronto? Do they supersede the Wizards? Even the Celtics, who have been balling right now. I'm still a little bit iffy, just because I don't. This might be a bit of sort of Nets bias coming in, as me and Nick probably have a little bit of. I don't rate Jason Kidd as a coach, and I don't rate the best move that he's made in his entire coaching career was putting Giannis at the point in his sophomore season. Other than that, I don't rate him in terms of systems. I'd put them at the 4. If they can't get a 4 or a 3 going into the postseason, then it's a fail.
Well, Jason Kidd's really beat at beating his players in a 3-point competition. I don't know if you guys saw the video that came out yesterday. He beat Chris Middleton in like a 3-point competition.
That's not
Middleton's a good shooter too.
Yeah, exactly.
And actually, the last 3 that Jason Kidd made, Middleton walked right by him and whistled as he was shooting it, and it still went in. Nothing but net. So Jason Kidd can still ball. Maybe he should go on the floor. I agree that he's definitely not a system coach. There's nothing that stands out about Jason Kidd as a coach, at least not yet. But I said this on Full Access Hoops, either episode 2 or 3. I think the Bucks could be a 2 seed if they got Bledsoe, and now that they have Bledsoe, and they didn't give up Jabari, I think they can be a 2 seed in the East, at least right now, because of what Cleveland's going through. Washington has really been a disappointment to this point. They lost to Dallas last night, one of the worst teams. The Raptors are just inconsistent, and the Celtics have been solid. They have the best defense in the league for a reason.
Yeah, very true. Where do you think the Bucks are now in terms? Are they just Eastern Conference contenders, or is there a small chance they could end up in the finals, or still out of the question?
I think it certainly increases the chances somewhat, Nick. But at the end of the day, we know what's going to happen. Like, we know what's happening at the end of the story. It's like going into a movie and going, look, I know what's going to happen in this. It's a Marvel film. We're going to wait till the post-credit scene and see what happens. But at the end of the day, the length I like in terms of how the front office has built this Bucks squad. And I was reading an ESPN feature piece from ESPN, the magazine online, how it actually came off the back of a Golden State Warriors game where they were, destroyed in terms of shooting, in terms of, how KD and Clay just all in terms of their entire just philosophy, and how the philosophy was built out of that loss. And now they're sort of building something here. And is it sustainable? I think it is in today's NBA in terms of having multi-positional, lots of guards, lots of guys with length. But I think I hate to keep harping on Coach Kidd here, but they need to get like whether it's a Rick Carlisle, try and get him out of Dallas right now, because I'm not sure he's going to want to rebuild for the next 5 years out there. Get like a really quality coach, and then that's going to get the best out of all of their assets from Thon all the way up to Giannis.
They're not going to make the finals. This is like one of those novels that you read, and like the first chapter, it tells you where you are currently. It'd be like the Warriors are celebrating the parade. It'd be like, how did we get here? And the Bucks are not in that picture. I do think they're gonna. I do think they could be a 2 seed. I'm not exact. I mean, that's just what I think. But even still, if they get in the playoffs as a 2 seed, say the Cavs are a 7 seed, I'm picking the Cavs to win that series. Yeah. I think it just depends on how this team progresses. We have to see how Eric Bledsoe fits in, like you said. We have to see if Jason Kidd can actually coach. I know the Milwaukee fan base has been wanting him fired for pretty much since he's got there. But no, they're definitely not a finals team.
What do you think Jason Kidd has to do to keep his job in terms of wins and playoff success? What has Kidd got to do to keep his job, or is he just going to get fired regardless?
Look, I think in terms of he might have to do if they are like, say, in a 7-game series in that first round, they need to win that 7th game. I wouldn't be surprised if he got John Henderson on the bench to spill a cup of Coke on him just so he could run another play like he did for our Nets. One of my favorite Jason Kidd moments. But I think I mentioned it earlier. I think they need to win a series. That's the bare minimum. If they can't win a playoff series, then I can't see Jason Kidd coaching this team for the foreseeable future.
He's been lucky to a degree that because of the injuries to Jabari, to Middleton, he hasn't really had a healthy team. So I think the front office has given him some slack.
Yeah.
Because as we know in the NBA, if you're missing your best players, you're not going to be as good as you're supposed to be. It's just how it is. And I agree, though, Jack. I think the Bucks have to make it into the second round. You can't go through a one-and-done exit. You need to have some kind of progression. You want to see guys like Thon Maker take that leap of, Giannis said he could be better than him one day. You have to see some of these things and then see some progress in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think a second-round entrance would be required. If they get bounced in the second round by a good team and they put up a good fight, I think they're good. But if they get knocked out in the first round, it's not good for Jason Kidd. But let's take a look at the other side of the trade, the Phoenix side. So what were your thoughts from the Suns making this trade? Obviously they lost all leverage with the whole situation with Bledsoe saying that he wasn't going to be with the team. So did you think that they got, okay value for the situation, or it's still a terrible trade?
Well, they had to give him up in the end, Nick. But you look at the 2 other sort of main contenders in this. We can probably discount the Clippers despite the fact that they were sort of in the running. In the Cavs and the Denver Nuggets, I don't think that what they'd offer in return would be as great. Like, would a first rounder from Denver be as great as say one in Milwaukee? It depends on the protections that the Denver front office might have given. Wilson Chandler probably would have been the contract that they were going after as he's an expiring. Who's more valuable, Wilson Chandler or Greg Monroe? And then with Wilson Chandler, you have to attach a guy like probably a Darrell Arthur or a Kenneth Faried to make the salaries match a little bit. So it's sort of like not really a win-win situation, but it's like a glass half full. Like, it's fine, but I guess they sort of had to make the deal. It could have been better if they sort of could have somehow maybe got rid of Tyson Chandler, because what I've heard is that they're trying to really get rid of some salary so they can sort of attack the 2019 free agency, and that there were rumors of Robert Sarver, the Suns owner, who's trying to maybe selling the team in the future. So they're trying to sort of make the team as sort of quote cheap as possible in terms of assets. So there's those elements, and whether the front office was influenced by the ownership in that sort of sense, in terms of, because Greg Monroe has a very valuable expiring contract. So and the Cavs could have offered probably Channing Frye they could have given that Nets first rounder, but there's no way they were going to give that up because that's top 10 most likely, unless there's some heavy protections behind it. So yeah, I guess it's the best of a bad bunch, so to speak.
I think it opens the floodgates. I think this is just a trade for more trades to come from the Phoenix Suns. They're already talking about trading Greg Monroe, possibly to try and get probably a draft pick, since they didn't get a lot for Bledsoe. Like you said, Nick, they lost all leverage. And when you lose all leverage, you get trades like this for Greg Monroe as the primary guy. So I do think they make more moves. I think Tyson Chandler will get moved at some point as well. There's a few teams that could use a rebounder like Tyson Chandler because
yes.
I mean, honestly, would you guys be against getting Greg Monroe?
I don't know. I'll let you take this one because I'd obviously maybe prefer Jalil in this instance.
Honestly, your guy is a good fit with the Nets system and what they're trying to do, and either guy is going to really help them where they struggle, and that's defensively. The Nets are getting killed in the front court. So, I mean, Greg Monroe would be nice because he would give them a little bit more offensive pop. But at this point, I think Greg Monroe is more interested in a contender, but I think the Nets would be better off, like I mentioned on the Brooklyn Buzz pod, to go after a G League guy later in the season because there's no point in getting Monroe, I think, because he's most likely not going to stay there, and the Nets aren't going to want to pay him this summer.
Yep, very true.
All right, that's what I was just wondering because I know you guys do need a center. You guys are
yeah. I mean, the center play is really bad, and with me saying that, having to watch Moskov play last night was horrendous. And even then, I just think Monroe is better off going to a team. Like I think reports are right now that he wants to go to a team where he can kind of build up his value for next year. So maybe he does go to a bad team and get a lot of minutes, but I think he's more interested in trying to win.
I think the rumor going around is that what possibly the Sixers can offer in terms of Jalil and Amir Johnson, which I was really intrigued about in terms of because Amir Johnson has that 1 year, $11 million contract, which isn't huge, and obviously what Jalil can give, and then Monroe would fit in quite nicely as a bench piece for Philly and give them some nice depth there, and obviously his expiring contract doesn't really hurt their cap hold by any stretch.
Well, if I'll play devil's advocate to that, if you're going to trade Okafor for another offensive-minded center who plays very little defense, then why even trade Okafor for Greg Monroe? I don't know. If you know what I'm saying, maybe I'm just not seeing it. I don't know why that would work.
Yeah,
or be any different.
It didn't make a lot of sense, but in terms of getting rid of Jalil, in terms of the talent, I guess Monroe's a bit more seasoned. Jalil was pretty terrible the other night. He sort of lost that motivation, whereas Monroe's going to have a lot more motivation to be on the Sixers and sort of prove his worth. So I guess in terms of the activity and the motivation levels are going to be starkly different, whereas Jalil on the Suns would fit quite nicely because, if he's on one of those sort of lowly teams like the Nets or the Suns or the Bulls or the Hawks, then, he's going to want to do sort of the same things what Monroe's doing, but obviously in a lesser organization.
Yeah, it's definitely a tough situation. Also, from the Sixers side, I don't know if I'd want to lose Amir Johnson. Not that he's a great player, but he's a solid vet to have around, especially if one of the centers were to go down, knock on wood. But, he's a good backup to have. But moving on from there, who do you think this season is going to be traded? If you had to give me a couple guys this year that you think are a lock to be moved.
Jalil Okafor is the number one that comes to mind. I think the Bulls and the Hawks are the ones that have been making the most noise lately. But I want our Nets to start getting into that action because that'd be nice. I think Mirotic or Portis. I don't think I was listening to one of the ESPN podcasts earlier today, and they were saying, one of the Bulls beat writers, that apparently no one in the Bulls organization wants to play Mirotic or Portis at the same time. So when both of them are healthy,
that's kind of obvious.
It's pretty hard though. They're two of your better players, and in terms of lineups, but I definitely understand. So I think one of those guys might be a lot to move. And on another lower end sort of scale, even a Mario Hazonia, in a similar sort of situation to what Jalil is in, but obviously he has a bit more to offer. And then I don't want to steal all of them. I'll let Kory say a couple, and then if he misses out on any, I might chuck in a few more.
The Bobby Portis and Mirotic, one of them will be moved. I think you can't have two guys on your team that you can't play together and have an altercation the way they did. I definitely think someone has to be moved, and it's not going to be Bobby Portis because Bobby Portis balled out last night on his first game back. So I think you got to trade Mirotic, who honestly hasn't even been that good the last couple of years to start with. Dallas could maybe make a move. If they keep sucking, I wouldn't be surprised if Mark Cuban, he won't ever admit to going tank mode, but he may trade off, like a Wesley Matthews contract just to free up some room. I don't think DeMarcus Cousins gets traded as of right now anymore. The Pelicans just looked really good with those two.
They do.
I would like them to make a move for somebody, for some perimeter, like 3-and-D player, but they just don't have any assets. I don't know if that happens. That's it. I really don't see anyone else at this point being traded yet. I don't know what the Cavs do. Like, I know they're going to make a move for somebody. I just don't know who's expendable.
Does Kevin Love go?
After the way he played last night,
yeah.
I don't know. The way he played last night, they need him. He was balling out.
Yeah, but I mean, in terms of importance, I think J.R. Smith is more important in terms of his form than a Kevin Love. I think he's a bit more expendable, especially if Tristan were to come back. And one that was making the rounds earlier in the year that I don't think will happen, and if anything will happen more likely in July, DeAndre Jordan, because they're in an interesting situation, the Clippers there, in terms of do they pay him? The main rumor making the rounds, I remember, was a straight swap for DeAndre for Capella. Now, they're basically like-for-like guys, so I don't really understand the sort of trade there, sort of how Kory was saying about the Monroe trade to Philly. But DeAndre is a name that I'd keep an eye on as well.
Yeah, Reggie Jackson's another name. Detroit's been trying to move him for a long time.
Yeah,
he's been mentioned in a ton of trades. I think you guys are right on with the Bull stuff. So, but the Capella and DeAndre thing, that's interesting. Capella's younger, obviously, but like you said, they're very similar skill sets. And Kory, like you said, I think Dallas probably makes a move. There's no point in having all those players, especially if you're going to be, one of the worst teams in the league. Cleveland, they'll make a move, obviously. Yeah, exactly.
You get some up if you're Dallas.
Get another asset, get a few more young players, see what you can do, because Noel, obviously, that's not working out right now. He's not playing any minutes. He's probably not going to want to come back. So maybe he's somebody who could get moved. That's an eye to keep on. Other than that, it's tough. Names will pop up as the year progresses. There's always going to be a few guys that end up being traded that we didn't expect, especially if some of these decent teams end up doing bad. I think we'll see more moves than expected. I think some of the trade juice from the offseason is going to carry over.
I think another team I didn't even think of until just now was OKC. I mean, I know it's not time to panic yet. Be surprised if they tried to add like a 3-point shooter or something to that second unit, or just some extra pop.
I think Hazonia would be a nice fit there in terms of, I don't think in terms of trades, I wouldn't be necessarily looking to get rid of anything over there in OKC, but I'd want to add someone like a Hazonia, another sort of shooter. Doesn't really provide a lot of D. Maybe a Mirotic, if he's just purely sort of that guy that comes off the bench, sort of spaces the floor a little bit. But yeah, I think they're all about sort of, creating a bit more offense and, providing sort of a bit of defense and just adding some depth to their bench because, right now they don't really bat any more than sort of 8 deep, if that.
Yeah, I could see a 3-point shooter added. I don't know about Hazonia. I think they'd probably want somebody a little bit more seasoned. I think Mirotic maybe could work out, but that's a good point. I think they could go after a veteran bench player.
Yeah.
All right, guys, before we get out of here, I want to get some hot takes from you guys. We're obviously not that far into the season, but there's plenty to excite about.
All right, so I have got a sort of combined coach one. Coach Ty Lue and Coach Kidd, one of them and or both of them will not last the season. One of them will be fired.
Wow, I like that. Victor Oladipo for most improved player of the year.
I think it's Porzingis is to lose now at this stage, isn't it?
Ah, shit, you're right.
Yeah, like it always.
You forgot about it.
Like bubble burst.
It's not like I forgot about it. It's like I know he's like I have him like in the scoring title race. I just didn't realize that he's really jumped that high in his points per game.
Sort of like what Giannis did last year. Like he was obviously very good, but he's elevated his game to that sort of superstar.
Yeah, that plateau. Yeah,
that plateau. Like the upper echelon. So I think if Porzingis doesn't get injured, I think it's sort of his to lose. We were all like had those predictions of like Oladipo, Rodney Hood, all those sort of young guys. But I think at this stage, Porzingis has it locked.
How much longer do you think Porzingis can play at this rate, or is this what we can come to expect of him? And the same thing with the Knicks. When do you think, are they going to cool down, or is this like the team we're going to see for the rest of the season?
Oh, no, the Knicks will definitely cool off. They'll have their up and down moments. But the thing that a lot of people have been saying about Porzingis in terms of his like longevity, how long can he keep this up? He's a young guy. Like, he's got that energy. I remember seeing, we all saw the millions of Instagram posts that weren't DMs to Instagram models about him sort of working out. And the emphasis was on him being ready for an 82-game season. He's the guy there now, so he can't have any nights off. He's energized. He looks like he wants to be the face, and he's embracing it. I recently saw on Twitter someone voted him in the mayoral race to be mayor of New York. I wouldn't mind the Porzingis running things down there in NYC, but I'm expecting big things from Porzingis. The Knicks, they'll taper off, that's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think this is sustainable. I just think because at some point in the season, when Porzingis is your only like great player, the amount of double teams we'll see will likely at least frustrate him until he gets used to it. I do think he'll be up in like 25 points per game. I don't think he'll be around 30 like he is now.
All right, guys, you got any more hot takes for us?
The Lakers. Oh, I got one. The Lakers trade either KCP or Julius Randle before the season's over.
They're trying to trade Luol Deng though. Like that's the one thing that they're trying to, because
they'll have to package somebody with them, and I think it could be like a Julius Randle or something.
That's true. But like, what are you going to get? I mean, KCP is a nice piece. In fact, he's probably
both expiring contracts. Both expiring.
Yeah, they're always valuable in terms of. I think KCP is a nice sort of prototype for you would fit in today's NBA. But I mean, I hear what you're saying there, Kory, in terms of creating that sort of space. But if you're Paul George, if you're LeBron James, like what is the lure of the Lakers right now? Like Lonzo isn't the savior that everyone's been craving. I think LeVar has more things to worry about in terms of his other son getting locked up in a Chinese prison. But I don't see. I guess the Lakers would make a move, but at the same time, they need to have some sort of cachet there and win some games. Other than it can't revolve around Lonzo and Kuzma all season, or maybe it can. I don't know. Maybe I'm being naive.
I don't think they can trade Luol Deng. I don't think Luol Deng will be movable at all. Like if you look at his contract and what he's done, you'd have to throw a first on there and probably Julius Randle, and he's an expiring. So I don't even know if you can move Luol Deng.
And who would want Luol Deng? Like
he has years left on his deal too, I think.
Well, yeah, and it's not like he was even playing like decent. Like he was god awful playing. Like he can't shoot anymore. He's lost his game. Like he hit a. What is he, 34? He hit 34 hard. Like 34 was a wall, and he is just like face planted on the wall.
Yeah, yes. I remember reading on I think it was Real GM that the fact that they've met with Deng's representatives and they're trying to find either whether it's a trade or a buyout. I think the most likely deal is what Nick was saying, either a salary dump or they somehow maybe waive and stretch him, sort of like a Spencer Hawes. He's owed $36 million over the next 2 seasons. Like. We thought Mozgov's contract was bad, Nick. Dear Lord, at least we stayed away from that Luol Deng one.
Yeah, they both suck. And I mean, it's really put the Lakers in a bad position. Those contracts they signed at the beginning of free agency a few years ago, they were just terrible. Trash. But that wraps it up for today. Kory, Jack, great show. And as always, thank you everybody for listening. And you can catch the NBA Outlet on iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, OTTBasketball.com, and YouTube.
Yeet.